why do we do what we do? It's giving back. It's the community aspect. It's, food, the language of love. We get to do that every day.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. During COVID, neighbourhood venues thrived as those in the CBD found it hard to tread water. But there have been many changes in one's approach to the restaurant in the city, and more we're seeing little personal eateries that are becoming hubs of the community, popping up and thriving. Michelle Powell is the owner and chef of Mishy's in Sydney. Michelle, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. It's great to get you on the show. You've been part of so many venues in Sydney and now you've got your own. How are things going?
Yeah, good. Oh, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I never really dreamt of owning my own restaurant, but during COVID, just before COVID, I should probably start. I was a co-owner and co-head chef of Bistro Rex, and I'd left my position there in January, took 3 months off, and then I started a little condiment brand called Naturally Sourced during COVID. So within that time, I started the business in my 2-bedroom apartment in Potts Point. And then as I grew and grew, I needed more space. So, half of Sydney, all of Sydney's restaurants and caterers had lost a lot of their business. So that was an opportunity to rent a kitchen, a bench in a kitchen in a catering company. So I did that for about 2 years, and then Sydney started to open up and my space became more expensive in the shared kitchen, and I became busier, they became busier. So I needed to make a decision: do I go and work for somebody else or find my own little space? So I never dreamt of finding something right in the heart of Surrey Hills. I think the listing wasn't... it was quite brief. It didn't have like the 3 key elements that we look for, like 3-phase, range hood, and gas. So, I found this space and got a very, very small business loan and took the leap. So...
What sort of impacts did sort of going out on your own have on you, both positive and kind of negative?
Positive. Being one of 8 owners at Bistro Rex, I thought, this is going to be a great opportunity to make all my own decisions. I can put on whatever music I want, and then after a few months I was like, oh my God, I actually have to do everything. That was a positive and a negative. So it has been a huge learning curve. I think it's been harder to open up a venue and be taken seriously with only a small amount of money in this town. I'd driven all over Sydney trying to find a bargain on Marketplace. I didn't use Silver Chef at all. So I could tell you actually every dollar that I'd spent, I invested in, a brand new vacuum sealer machine. I knew I needed that. I got a combi oven off Marketplace and, it wasn't connected. So I was like, a $7,000 investment. I think it might have been 8. And I was like, oh my God, I hope this works. I've had to learn how to do everything. The cooking's the easy part. I've had to learn how to set up POS systems, marketing, driving the business. I could work 24/7. So I think now we're just over a year old. It has kind of changed and evolved into what it is today. I did the first few months just on my own. I had no idea what I was going to do with the site. All I knew is that I needed a commercial kitchen. At the time, I'd started doing a lot of private catering, private chefing work. I did 3 months, didn't open the doors, renovated myself. I started to smash out a gyprock wall, and I was like, oh my God, this is so hard. So then I got Air Tasker to come and finish off the job. True story. And yeah, oh God, I've made mistakes. If I could do it all again, I'd probably do a couple of things differently, like ask the plumber for a quote before he started the work. That was a huge bill that I was not expecting. So yeah, the first 3 months, I didn't know what I was going to do with the site, but what I did know is that I wanted to nourish the community, hopefully deliver a really beautiful product at a reasonable price, and I think. Yeah, I think now we've achieved that. We've definitely achieved the community aspect. Prices, the price point I get, like I started off really cheap. I was like, oh my God, I can't, because I just come from farmers markets as well. So I was like, okay, we're doing these amazing salad bowls, and they were like $15. And there was a line out the door, and I'm like, and they're like, oh, can I have some avocado? Yeah, sure. Throw it on, but wouldn't charge any extra. And I was like, okay, I can't continue to do this. So yeah, I did the first 3 months on my own, just solo. Opened up the doors. I'd cook. I started off just doing really clean salad bowls, not using any canola oil in any of the food. Cooking a couple of chickens at lunch, and then kind of picking it to order whilst people watched me put salads together. And then I had a holiday planned before I took the site, so I needed to either close for 4 weeks or get somebody else in there to be Mishi. And I'm glad I closed the doors. I was pretty burnt out and kind of gave me the time to reset. Look, I did lose traction financially, I think. Definitely. And then I started again, and I took on some staff. Jo Ward we've been working together and cooking together all over the world for some time now. She's with me, one of Australia's best chefs. She's with me, so she's been a huge mentor throughout my career, and she's still with me today. And people go, oh, like now, like today they come in and they have dinner and they're like, they look at the space, and sometimes people go, oh, what is this? Like, it's not a $3 million fancy fit out. And then they eat the food, they go, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm like, you've got one of Australia's best chefs out the back cooking. Like, so then I started with chefs and, had to implement the POS system and learning how to do all of that, credit card payments. Now I've got a booking system. It's like, oh, okay, how do I do this? Like, I've only just learned how to put a walk-in in. Oh, okay. So I did start off doing ready-made meals, pick up and go, and that was quite hard to manage. And, people were like, oh, if you do that, we'll come all the time. And they did come, but then they didn't. And, it was kind of quite up and down. And then we decided that we were just going to stop doing that because, and also too, like that kind of food, it's all quite wet and stewy kind of thing. So we stopped that. I didn't start with a coffee machine. I didn't want to be a cafe, although my hours kind of determined that I was. And then people were coming and going, oh, do you do coffee? I'm like, no, I don't do coffee, sorry. And I thought, oh, okay, everyone's asking for coffee. Like, seriously, do we need another coffee machine in this town? So I had quite a few meetings with different roasters, and I was going to do the rent and get the coffee beans and all that sort of stuff. But if you can't hit their quotas, you're paying rental for a machine. So I worked really hard and bought the coffee machine outright. It's not the Rolls Royce of coffee machines, but it does a good coffee. And I use a local bean here in Surrey Hills, a roaster. Now we are a 7-day operation. We open from 9 till 3, Monday till Wednesday. And then we open up for a dinner service. So we start at Thursday to Saturday is 9 a.m. till 10 p.m. now. And then Sunday we're doing the dinner menu plus a Sunday roast. So I'd only actually just opened up doing 7 days about 14 weeks ago. I got a knock from the council and a few letters from the council saying, hey, you're DA, you're not allowed to trade past 8 o'clock at night. And I was like, what? And I was like, are you serious? Because I have a liquor license that tells me that I can open from 10, like till 10. So they're like, sorry, you can't. You've got to apply for an extension of hours. And I'm like, oh my God, like seriously, the highs and lows of small business. Just when I was kind of picking up and getting momentum, and I was only doing 2 nights a week as well. So I had to cancel all of my 7:30 bookings, my private book outs. I had to cancel. Like that was a lot of money for me, a lot of money. So we were like, okay, we need cash flow. So we started to open up more and more, and we were still doing dinner service, but, you know, doing a dinner service, like my seat, I can hold up to 24 seats. So pushing everyone to 6 o'clock and then getting everybody off site by 8. It was like doing 230 covers on a Saturday night at Bistro Rex. So, you know, I would put time and effort into desserts, and then at the end of it, I couldn't even offer dessert. I was just like, here you go, just take it, like, you know, complimentary. Thank you for being so understanding. Hopefully we'll get our DA sorted soon. So, yeah, I had some friends from the Pateno group, and they would come in and eat, and I was like, hey, oh my God, Joe, do you reckon you can have a look at this for me? Like, what does this mean? And, you know, I'm not, and he was like, oh, let me have a look at it. Anyway, so he'd found back in 2014, the site had applied for an extension of hours. The site had received, had been approved, but all of the other tenants before me had never renewed it. So, yeah, and then like Joe within half an hour found all of this paperwork online where the council didn't even find. And then I called the council and I was like, hey, what about this? And they're like, really sorry, it was back in 2014. You know, you need to apply again. So I had to wait. I've only just on Monday been approved. So that was a huge financial stress and pressure. But, you know, it kind of, it hurt. And, you know, the highs and lows of small business, it really took me quite low. And then I was like, right, we're not going down. So, yeah, I kind of pulled it all together, and, you know, it gave me energy and drive to, you know, keep it afloat for 14 weeks. And it was like, I called the council and he's like, oh, what are you actually applying for? I said, oh, to trade till 10 o'clock. He said, oh, that's the norm in Surrey Hills. And I'm saying, so you're telling me that I've had to lose so much business? Like, I'm on my own. I don't have backers. Like, this is a lot of money for me. And then so they had to send out all the letters to the residents and have that big blue letter on the front door. And then on the day I could pull it down on the Monday, I called the council and I was like, hey, what's happening? And he goes, oh, okay, yeah, I can see it here. Oh, it's in the pile with the rest of them. And I said, oh, well, what's the next stage? He said, oh, I've got to show my supervisor, and, you know, it's still 2 or 4 weeks away. And I was like, are you serious? I said, I don't know if my small business can handle this, like this loss of trade. Anyway, he said, oh, okay, we still have to look through it all. I said, has there been any letters? He said, yeah, there's lots of letters of support, and just one letter from a resident. And anyway, so that was, it still took another 4 weeks for them to say approved. And I was like, great, let's open up the bookings again. Let's take it to the next level.
Well, I want to explore what you are doing there at Mishy's and what the next level is shortly. But take us back to when you were young. What sort of role did food play for you, and whereabouts did you grow up?
I grew up in the western suburbs of Sydney, a little suburb called Greystanes. Yep, so about 10 minutes from Parramatta, in an area where I'm Maltese background. So it was where, when all the immigrants from Malta came in the 60s, that's where they all immigrated to. So yeah, I grew up there. I had a great, I hated school. All I wanted to do was play sport. My spelling and my maths, is questionable. I can only count to 10 because I've got 10 fingers. So that's been another learning curve, and costings and all of that sort of stuff. So I never went to school. I always, I was always sick in the morning, and then by lunchtime I was fine again. So within that time, my mother worked night shift as well. So my father was a car salesman out in Parramatta. So he worked hard. He was a workaholic. Mum would sleep all day, so I had to cook for myself throughout the day. And so, yeah, I just watched movies like Cocktail, and Dirty Dancing and Grease over and over and over again, and lived to play sport. And then, yeah, and I remember the Sunbeam electric wok came out, and I was like, oh, it was stir fry heaven. So I started playing that with that. And then yeah, and Mum, I used to spend a lot of time with Mum, going to the shops and stuff like that. And Mum used to take so much time at the fruit and veg shop. She would analyse everything that she put into her basket. And now I actually go out to Flemington myself, and I handpick all the produce for the restaurant. And it only just came back to me, all those memories of going, oh my God, this is what Mum taught me this, like how to pick beautiful produce. And so that's kind of my childhood. I started working at a deli, cut price deli, when I was a kid. Couldn't wait to turn, but it was at 14, so I could start working. And then I started working at KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Why did I love it? I loved the teamwork aspect that was there. I loved the procedures that we had to follow. Like, I would hire anyone in a heartbeat that had all that training at a fast food restaurant. So I did that. Kind of made my way up just a little bit, but then I kind of got to the point where it was like, okay, I can't continue working at Kentucky Fried Chicken. So one of my cousins was working in Parramatta, and she was like, oh, hey, I saw this sign out the front of a restaurant called Barnaby's, and they're looking for a first-year apprentice. Remember Barnaby's? Michael Fisher is still very much active. Yeah, he's still very active in our community. But so I got the job as a first-year apprentice. And that was the start of where I am today. And I went through my apprenticeship every 6 months, loved it, hated it, then loved it, hated it. And then I had someone in my world that was like, just stick with it. Like, I wish I had this opportunity. If you stick with this and you get a trade, you could travel the world. And I was like, really? Okay, so did the apprenticeship out west. One of my biggest regrets in life, and probably my only regret as a chef, is that I didn't bounce around throughout my apprenticeship. I just stayed in the one restaurant for 4 years.
But what were the benefits of being at that venue for 4 years?
It was modern Australian. I guess it was close to home. There were some really great chefs there, and it was pumping. It was like, back in its heyday, it was like the restaurant. It was good. The head chef, he was Korean. So there was a little bit of, modern Australian influence, kind of Asian kind of going through it all. Every time I smell sesame oil today, I still remember about my apprenticeship. I think it was like Balmain bugs with like sweet and sour sauce or something like that, sweet chili, something like that. every time I smell, it takes me back. But part of my apprenticeship, I had to go to the markets to Flemington with the head chef once a week and pick all the produce, and then come back and unpack it and do all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, and then as soon as I finished my apprenticeship, I took a ticket straight into the city. So in Greystanes, you either get out at 18 or you're stuck there for life. So I did that, and then I started working at Cafe Sydney, and I was like, wow, look at all these waiters. Look at all these look at this brigade. It was huge. It had the tandoori oven and, it was pumping. So I took a job there, and then I was like, right, I want to get out of this place. Like I want to stop chefing, and I want to explore other things. So yeah, stopped chefing, and at the time, the restaurant manager at Cafe Sydney, his friends owned a cocktail bar slash kind of nightclub here in Surrey Hills. And I said to him, Todd Cummings, you may know Todd Cummings. I was like, oh, your friends own that bar. Do you think you can ask them if they'll give me a job? Like, I don't know how to make a cocktail, but I'll pick up dirty ashtrays. I just want to get out of chefing. And he's like, sure, no worries. So my first shift, my trial at the cocktail bar, they're like, oh, I don't normally do this, but because you're a chef, we're going to teach you how to make cocktails. And it became really easy to put all the flavours and balance drinks. So I started becoming a bartender whilst starting a personal training certificate. So I did those two jobs, and at the time, and then I started working down at China Doll as a bartender. Lyndon Pride was the head bartender down there, and now Lyndon, is taking over New York and LA with Dante. So I was working under him there, and then where did I go? And that's where I met Jo Ward, actually. I was a cocktail bartender and she was a chef. And we kind of met there. I could barely see Jo over the tall pass. And yeah, that's where we became friends. And then, yeah, should I continue with the story?
Throughout your career, what have been the really sort of, I guess, key venues and really important people that have helped you on your path?
Definitely Lyndon Pride, Pete Cucuruto and Barchi Moore. So Pete Cucuruto was the owner down at China Doll. And they had a really strong network of, old school hospitality friends. And so that's kind of where I was kind of, taken in as the younger, the younger one in the group. So they have really helped me shift my kind of career and the twists and turns that I've done. So Barchi Moore, I was living over in overseas at the time, and I'd got in contact with Barchi, and she was like, "Hey, we're about to open up this hot new Asian restaurant with Neil Perry. We're looking for a female bartender. Do you reckon you'd come back home?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So I came back home. Lyndon Pride was head of the bar program at Rockville Bar and Grill and Spice Temple. He pretty much put me into the bar management role for Spice Temple. And then Spice Temple was amazing. It was one of the best experience of my life. Working under Neil, amazing venue, working under Neil Perry. Like, every time I say his name, I still get goosebumps. He was such a strong leader, and lots of training and inspiring and, customer service driven and experience and all of that. And then I moved down to Melbourne with Spice, and we opened up Spice Temple in the casino. That was another experience altogether. It was quite challenging walking into a casino every day, opposed to, the Finger Wharf down at Wobbaloo. And then I moved back to Sydney, and I was still trying to stay out of kitchens, and I started working, actually Australian Home Harmonizer, I called it, because when I lived in in Los Angeles, I couldn't get a job as a chef, so I had to start, helping people declutter their homes. Anyway, so I did that back in Potts Point, and I messaged Barchy Moore at the time, and I was like, hey, Barch, just out of curiosity, how much do you pay your cleaner? And she's like, oh, my God, I've just had this opportunity come through for an all-expenses-paid trip as a private chef to Greece. Straight away, I thought of you. Here's the number, call them. And I was like, okay. So I called them, and I had an interview here in Sydney. I didn't get the job, and he was like, oh, look, I'm going to take this other chef. She came with me last year. And I was like, okay, well, I'm actually not doing anything at the moment. So I literally use this phase, it's not over to the fat lady sings. If anything happens within this 2 weeks, call me, I'm available. I got the phone call 5 days before I had to fly away. At the time, I was doing a juice and a coconut cleanse, so I wasn't even eating food. And I was like, oh, my God, I need to brush up on my chefing skills. So I was reading cookbooks for like 5 days, and I wasn't eating because I was fasting. I knocked on Andy Evans' door down at Spice Temple, and I was like, Chef, can I come and like stage for a couple of days? Then I went to Bodega, and I was like, hey, can I just come for a couple of days, like, and work in the kitchen? It's been so long. And then I got taken over to Greece, and that was for a 6 weeks, all expenses paid trip, and I ended up staying with the family for 5 years full time. So going back to the apprenticeship days where I had someone saying, stick with your trade, it will take you places, it really took me places.
Do you have any stories that you can tell us about from those adventures overseas?
Yeah. So one of the worst things that ever happened to me was Christmas. So summer and Easter, I lived in Greece, and then I followed the family around in Europe. And in winter, I lived in Switzerland. And within Switzerland, I had to look after two chalets, both with like 20 guests in both. So I had to do all the shopping, and I had to buy all the cleaning products and everything. Anyway, one morning, I went to the supermarket, and there was black ice, in the car park, and the trolley had slipped and fell over. Anyway, all of this blue laundry liquid went all over the ice, and I was like, oh my God, like, so soap on black ice in a car park, oh my God. So that was probably my most horrific story. But, it was an experience of a lifetime. I had my own garden. I had, gardeners every morning. They would greet me with like black trays of like figs, the most amazing figs every day. Our own olive oil, our own olives. I didn't have a budget for food, so I could just do whatever I wanted. So, lobsters, all of this sort of stuff. When the GFC hit, actually in Greece, my boss was like, hey, can we not, like, don't get any lobster? Not that I got it often, but the children really liked it, and they're like, hey, don't get lobsters because we don't want people to think that we're showing off. But yeah, it was an amazing experience. We had a wood fire oven in barbecue at the backyard. We cooked in a domestic kitchen. And then every summer I needed, first of all, I had Joel from Bodega. He came over and helped me for 6 weeks. And then the next year I needed another chef. So I had got in contact with some people back home, and I was like, hey, I really need a chef. And a friend of mine was like, hey, Jo Ward has just left Bloodwood. She's free. She's an amazing chef. Give her a call. Joey came over to Greece and helped me cook every summer for 4 years, for 6 weeks straight. Yeah, so it was hard. It wasn't an easy job. The family were absolutely beautiful. They were very generous. They were very polite and grateful. We cooked for 6 weeks straight, breakfast, lunch and dinner, revolving menu every day. So for lunch, it would be 40 people. And then sometimes that would go up and down like a yo-yo. There'd be a boat going past, and friends of my boss would be on there, and they're like, come in for lunch. And then she's like, such and such and such and such coming. It's an extra 12 people. And we're like, but I've only got like 6 sea bass. Like I can't get any more fish. So there was lots of that sort of stuff. But we did, like Joey, we did amazing things. Would do that, and then would clean down in the afternoon, jump straight in the sea, have a half an hour nap, go back to work, cook for the children, which were 10 kids under 12 plus their nannies, kids meal, and then that would finish, and then would flip over the kitchen, the fridges, and then would cook for the adults. An entree, and then kind of a family style dinner. So that happened every day for 6 weeks. We were. Let's just say, Hux, that we turned one of the local taverners into a drive-through bottle shop. We're like, we don't have this here in Greece. I said, well, we do in Australia. So all you do is we put out €10 and you give us 2 long necks of mythos, and happy days.
What was it like for you coming back to Australia after that epic journey?
It was needed. I was kind of getting to the point where, you live with these. I didn't live with them, with the family that I cooked for, but I became a part of the family. So, lots of the kitchen became the couch. Let's just say that. And I was like, okay, this is just, I think I need to go home and start life again. A friend of mine actually, she's like, right, you need an investment property. So we're going to get an investment property. And I didn't have the money at the time, but I did ask my boss over in Europe. I was like, hey, do you think you could give me a pay in advance to help me buy property? And they did. So that was, I had to work. I had to pay them back, of course, but, I went weeks and weeks without any pay just so I could kind of have a bit of a nest egg here when I got home. And then and then it was coming back, and myself and Joe, again, we helped a dying cafe here in Surrey Hills to kind of turn them around. They were losing like $10,000 a week. So we took that over and we focused on the cafe, and then after the cafe was sorted, then we opened up doing dinners at night. And we did that for about 6 months, and then Pete Cucuruto and the gang at Embarchi Moore, they came up with an idea. They were going to open up a French bistro in Potts Point. And, they approached us to come on board, and that was kind of, how we got there. So I guess, I've always had something to kind of go to, I guess, apart from the naturally sourced when COVID hit. That was probably the scariest time of being a chef. For the first time in my life, I felt unemployable. And I was like, right, okay, I'm going to start that idea that I've had in my mind. And then I started the naturally sourced range of, only using extra virgin Australian olive oil and, a home compostable refill system. And that was a whole new learning curve. Oh, my God, Hux. I thought, I'm going to save money. I only had a little bit of money again. And I was like, I'm going to save money and I'm going to go direct to China to buy all the jars, because jars are so expensive here in Australia. And to buy a small amount, it's even worse. So I went on to onto Alibaba and found a glass manufacturer and bought 15,500 jars, which were completely wrong. And I had to learn how to. So why they were wrong? The jars were so cool. They looked so nice, and they were an old school preserving jar. But the jars had a slight taper in the glass. So I couldn't push them through even a manual or a labelling machine. So I had to do not only, and then I bought a two-piece lid because I thought that was really cool, and I'll go old school. But I had to make the sauce, then I had to wash the jars, steam the jar, wash the lids, wash the two-piece lids. Then I'd have to pack the sauce, find the lid, find the insert of the lid, put that together, then put that on the jar, and then hand label 15,500 jars. I was like, oh my God, I'm not stopping this business until every single jar's gone. So, yeah, manufacturing food and opening up my own venue has been a very similar experience. I've had to learn how to do everything.
How has Mishy's changed since you first opened? I know you sort of touched on it at the beginning, but how do you explain Mishy's to people now, what it is now?
What it is now, look, I go out to the markets. I handpick all the produce. The idea behind that was to kind of cut out the middleman and then hopefully bring down the price of food, especially in restaurants, and pass on that saving to the customer. So I still do that once a week. So the produce is amazing. I handpick it all. It also gives me, the menu is extremely seasonal. The menu rotates almost weekly, especially at night, because we have such a loyal community base that we don't want them to get sick of, the same food. And so me and Joey, we talk food a lot. This is what we used to do in Greece as well. After the end of a big day, we'd go, okay, what are we cooking tomorrow? Oh, we've got 25,000 figs. What are we going to do? Let's make fig barbecue sauce, and then we'll do it with this and that. So there's a lot of that still happening throughout the restaurant. I wanted to bring the community back together, and I think you will definitely experience that when you come. A lot of the regulars, they all know each other and they all talk to each other and they jump on different tables. It has been, I guess, slightly confusing for myself and probably the customers as well. Look, because it has kind of been evolving and I've been learning. I've only just put a really great waiter station in like last week, which I found on Marketplace, which was awesome. At the start I was trying to save on wages, so I was doing a lot of the lunch food ready to go in the fridge so people could literally pick up and go. That's changed now. We're just making it to order. We are kind of, it's a fine line because the lunch trade, and I haven't done any publicity. You're actually the first. Broadsheet doesn't know, like I haven't done anything yet, and I'm kind of glad that it has taken me till now to kind of put the word out there, because it has been a little bit of a not disjointed, but kind of evolving to what it is today. But I'm ready now, and I was ready 14 weeks ago, but I was just like, what am I going to tell Broadsheet? I was like, I do dinner service till 8 o'clock at night. So I've had to hold that off, but I'm ready to kind of spread the word. The power of word of mouth has been extremely strong. But yeah, so the lunch and the dinner, we're slowly blending in the two menus because there's been so many menus everywhere, and we also do private catering as well. So, having all of this, I've got a small core room, having lots of different menus everywhere has been slightly challenging to manage, especially for my team as well. I know what's happening. So the menus are kind of blending in, but, I'll never sacrifice on quality or produce or protein. I'm still cooking with olive oil, and, I don't know how long I can do that for, given the prices of olive oil at the moment. But you've got to be a little bit price sensitive. I don't identify as a cafe, even though I have a coffee machine and I open up at 9 o'clock. We do food from 9 o'clock. I'll never do scrambled eggs. Joey would kill me if I did scrambled eggs. Something to everybody. So yeah, but I have to be a little bit price sensitive at lunchtime. I have a very loyal, office. There's lots of offices around me, and some people are happy to, to spend $29 on a beautiful, minute steak. But then there's some people that only want to spend $12. So, we hand make all the quiches, and we were doing our own pies, but there was a lot of labour in that. So, I found a really great producer who I knew from the market. So, I buy a few things in now, and I've also got to be really conscious of, labour as well. I'm still trying to work out what the winning formula will be for the lunch trade. The dinners are really starting to pick up. Like Friday night, it was like, I flipped the restaurant twice, the bar flipped, and I was like, lots of wine was going out. I work as a waiter as well on the floor, and then I was doing cocktails. So, running in, making cocktails and serving food, and, the dinner's starting to really pick up. But the lunch trade, I'm still trying to work out what the winning formula is. It's very, the trade's very inconsistent, so it's really hard to staff for that, number one. So what I have learnt that, I need staff that are multi-skilled. Like, I've got a great chef working at the front of house at the moment, but she makes an amazing coffee, so we can stop prep and go and do coffee service and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes, I was like, oh my God, Friday was so busy. So then next Friday I put on a waitress, and then, it's quiet. And then, like yesterday, for instance, one of my regulars like, oh, God, you're busy today. Where's all your staff? I said, you know what? I put them on and no one comes. And, so if you're a bit more consistent, so will I be, like. I think, I'm ready to tell the world. We don't have a hell of a lot of walk by traffic. So that sometimes can hurt a little bit, then there's the power of the word of mouth, where someone tells somebody else, and then all of a sudden people are walking. Hopefully it becomes a destination. Our food is very honest. It's clean, it's healthy, it's uncomplicated, but it's cooked really, really well. So having that price point at lunch where I'll never compromise on quality, but then still being able to make a profit. I think that's going to be the challenge. They say in small business, if you can last 18 months, you'll be okay. And being comfortable learning the highs and the lows and the waves. Cash flow has been a really, really challenging, freaks me out, but I'm kind of a bit more comfortable with that. I think,
It's amazing what you are building there. What do you love about what you do?
What I love about what I do, I love nourishing the community. I love, why do we do what we do? It's giving back. It's the community aspect. It's, food, the language of love. We get to do that every day. Towards the end of last year, when I'd opened up Mishy's, and it was in December, and I remember the first time I felt the feeling of joy, and I was like, oh my God, it's happening. Because for a long time I was like, okay, when is this going to start to feel good? Like, when is all of this going to really lift me up and make me happy and give me joy. Because at the start, it really didn't. It was a lot of hard work and, you know, waking up all throughout the night going, oh, I need to do this. Oh, I didn't do that. But, you know, but I'm settling into it now, and it, you know, every day is becoming more and more enjoyable. I've got a really great group of people around me, staff. I don't think I could have lasted if I didn't have such a strong community of friends around me. They've been a huge, huge supporter. So, yeah. Yeah. What more can I say?
Well, I know you've got so many more stories, particularly from your past as well, but it's been an absolute honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds, and so exciting to hear what's happening there with Mishy's. Please keep in touch and we'll have to catch up again soon.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.